All right, and another day and more solving for you now. Great news again. Once again, this is really just taking everything we've done, adding another step, right? And you're going to see what we're dealing with today. We're specifically going to talk about those grouping symbols again and how to approach problems where we have something inside of our parentheses, inside our absolute value bars, right? Something more than x as an exponent, all right? But all the principles are the same, all the logic that we've been using, the same. All right, so once again, we're still working on standard 10 here, right? I can solve linear, absolute value, quadratic, and exponential equations. All right, so we're really going to take the same process that we did in our previous lesson, and we're going to apply it here, except, right, as you look at the problems here, you can see that inside those grouping symbols, we have something more than just x, right? And you can see that here that exponent is x minus 4 instead of x. So how do we deal with that, right? And we've already talked about that. All right, but now how do I deal with that within the totality of our solving? So same steps as yesterday, right? Identify the type of function we have. Is it equal to 0? And then move forward from there. So looking at number 1, right? This is a linear problem. So I'm expecting one solution. All right, it's equal to 0. So that means I can use my 0 property, right? So now I'm going to cover up all of this, right? Because the same question we've been asking ourselves, right? When we use that 0 property, what plus 12 is equal to 0, right? Now, the only thing that's changing here, we know it has to be negative 12. The only thing that's changing is we get more of something that's equal to that number, right? So now everything behind my hand has to be negative 12. So all of that, right? So 4 times x minus 2 is equal to negative 12. All right. And now, once again, we're back to that multiplication problem. Now, the difference between this lesson and the prior lesson is this, is that yesterday or last time, we might have had this problem, right? We would have gotten to this step, right? And we said, okay, 4 times what is negative 12? All right, and we would have said, okay, it's negative 3. And then in this case, it's only x. So x would have been negative 3. Today, here's what we're working on in this lesson, right? Now it's the same mathematical fact, right? 4 times what is negative 12? So the answer is still negative 3. What's changing is what is equal to negative 3. So now, instead of being just this x equal to negative 3, all of that is equal to negative 3. So x minus 2 equals negative 3. So you can see that the first two steps are exactly the same as our prior lesson. All right. What's changing is now I have to do additional work because now I don't have just this x. Yeah, last time I would have stopped right here, but now I got to keep going. All right. And then once again, if you don't know this mathematical fact, we just get it equal to 0 and use that 0 property again. So I'm going to add 3, right? Get it equal to 0. So x plus 1 is equal to 0. Once again, now I can use that 0 property. What plus 1 is 0? And that answer is negative 1. All right, and there's your answer. All right, now just as a reminder, once again, okay, like how do I know I'm correct, right? We can go back and we can plug in for x, right? We can evaluate, and we did a lot of time, spent a lot of time on this first semester, right? So for open parentheses, negative 1 minus 2, close parentheses, plus 12, right? And that's 0. So I get 0 equals 0. I know my solution is correct. So remember, really quick and easy. All right, take your x value, go back and plug it in and type it. And what do you have right here should look exactly the same on your calculator, except wherever there's an x, you should be putting in your number. All right, let's look at problem 2 here. All right, now this is an absolute value problem. All right, see those absolute value bars. All right, so I know I'm expecting 2 solutions, right? I mean, I get 2, but I'm expecting 2, right? Now, is it equal to 0? It is. So that means I can use the 0 property, right? So what plus 15 is 0, right? So that has to be negative 15, right? They have to be opposites. So everything behind my hand has to be negative 15. So all of that, right? So negative 3 times the absolute value of x minus 5 is equal to negative 15. All right, and then once again, I'm to this multiplication problem. So negative 3 times what is negative 15? And negative 3 times positive 5 is negative 15. So whatever's behind my pen has to be positive 5, and that is the absolute value of x minus 5 has to be positive 5. Okay, now, once again, right, if we had this problem, and this is where we were before, right? Okay, we would have said, oh, absolute value of x is equal to 5. Got it. And then you say, oh, what numbers have an absolute value of 5? And that we would have said it's negative 5 and positive 5. Now, the difference is here. Notice there's just an x in here. Now we have more than that, right? But we're still asking the same question, what numbers have an absolute value of 5? And the answer is still negative 5 and 5. What is changing is what is equal to those two numbers, right? So instead of just an x being equal to negative 5 and 5, now we have, oh, x minus 5 is equal to negative 5, and x minus 5 is equal to 5. All right, so that's the additional step now, right? We have more inside our grouping symbol, so we're going to have additional steps to find those values. All right, so I'm going to add 5 and add 5, get it equal to 0, and I get x is equal to 0 for my first solution. I'm going to subtract 5 and subtract 5, and I get x minus 10, all right, is equal to 0, which tells me that x has to be 10, because 10 minus 10 is 0. All right, and you may have known that fact right here, right? So what number minus 5 is 5? 10 minus 5 is 5. So remember, you only have to get it equal to 0 if you don't know that or that fact, all right, whatever it happens to be. And there are my answers, all right? And we said we were expecting 2 answers. All right, we got 2 answers. All right, moving on to problem 3. Now, and I should have mentioned this before I started, but once again, we're not sketching these graphs, but if you got confused, right, you could sketch that graph, right? So I could look at this one like, oh, right, I'll just do this kind of really quick right here. Absolute value graph, my vertex is 515, so 515 would have been somewhere like over here, right? It has a negative a value, so I know it opens down, right? And I can see that, oh yeah, it's going to hit 0, which is the x-axis, and there should be 2 solutions. So once again, you can sketch that graph to verify, right, how many solutions you should have. All right, now, moving on to problem 3. I see a power of 2, so I know it's quadratic. I'm expecting 2 solutions. All right, now, is it equal to 0? It is, so now I can use that 0 property, right? So what minus 16 is 0? And the answer is 16, right? 16 minus 16 is 0. So everything behind my hand has to be 16. So negative 4 times x minus 6 squared is equal to 16. Now it's a multiplication question, right? I cover all this up, right? Negative 4 times what is positive 16? And it's negative 4 times negative 4, right? So a negative times negative gives us a positive. So whatever's behind my pen has to be negative 4. So x minus 6 squared equals to negative 4. Now when I get to this step, remember, all right, if I have something squared equals a negative, that's not possible. So I can stop right here, and that's no solution. All right, but we got to get to the step where there's nothing on the outside of our square before we make that determination. And then I'm done. All right, looking at number 4 here, we have an exponential, right? Or we have an x in the exponent. All right, so we are expecting 1 solution. Is it equal to 0? Yes. All right, so what minus 32 is 0? 32. All right, so whatever's behind my hand has to be 32. So 4 times 2 to the x minus 4 is equal to 32. Now, once again, now it becomes a multiplication question, right? 4 times what is 32? 4 times 8 is 32. So whatever's behind my pen has to be 8. And that is 2 to the x minus 4 is equal to 8. And so I got to figure out, okay, so what power of 2 is equal to 8? So if we go through our powers of 2, right, 2 to the 0 is 1. 2 to the first is 2. 2 squared is 4. 2 to the third power is 8. All right, so that's what we want. So that means this has to be 3. All right, so that means x minus 4 is equal to 3. All right, so once again, what minus 4 is 3? And the answer would be 7, right? So you might know that fact. If you don't, just get it equal to 0, right? X minus 7 is equal to 0. And then you can see that that for sure is 7. All right, so let's go ahead and flip the page here, and let's look at, all right, problems 9, all right, to 12, because I want to go through these with you because now, all right, same process, but we're going to add one additional step here, as you'll see as we go through these 4 problems together. So first thing, all right, we can see that this is linear, right? Just an x, no exponents, no bars, right? And here's the difference, right? Now our next question is it equal to 0? And the answer is no, it's not equal to 0. So the first thing we want to do is get it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 4, right? And then just remember, right, when we do this, I have to add it to just a number. And this is just my number right here. All right, so it can't be attached to anything, can't have a variable on it. It has to be just a regular number. So I'm going to add 4 here. So negative 8 and then x plus 5 plus 16 is equal to 0. Now it's just like what we did before, right? Now it's equal to 0, so I can use that 0 property, right? What plus 16 is 0? Negative 16. So everything behind my hand has to be negative 16. So negative 8, x plus 5 times x plus 5, I should say, is equal to negative 16. Now it's a multiplication problem. Negative 8 times what is negative 16? And that is positive 2. So x plus 5 has to equal to positive 2. Now, what plus 5 is 2? All right, if you don't know that fact, right, get it equal to 0. So subtract 2, x plus 3 is equal to 0. What plus 3 is 0? Negative 3. And there's our solution. So you can see that this just adds one additional step, right? We have to get that equal to 0 first so we can use that 0 property. All right, now looking at number 10, all right, it's absolute value. All right, absolute value. All right, so I'm expecting two solutions. All right, good. Now, is it equal to 0? No, so let's make it so. All right, so I'm going to make it equal to 0 by subtracting 17. All right, so that's 0. And then once again, I'm looking for just the regular number, nothing attached to it, no parentheses, no absolute values, no variables, right? And I'm also going to subtract 17 here. So 6 times the absolute value of 4 minus 30 is equal to 0. And now we can use that 0 property, right? What minus 30 is 0? 30 minus 30 is 0. All right, and then 6 times the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to 30. Now we're to that multiplication problem, right? 6 times what is 30? All right, and the math fact is 5. 6 times 5 is 30. And once again, you can verify that on your calculator to be sure, right? So that means the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to 5. Okay, now, what numbers have an absolute value of 5? Negative 5 and positive 5, right? So x plus 4 could be negative 5. X plus 4 could be positive 5. All right, once again, if you don't know that math fact, right, just get it equal to 0, right? So add 5, right? X plus 9 is equal to 0. What plus 9 is 0? Negative 9. We know they have to be opposites to be 0. All right, subtract 5, right? X minus 1 is equal to 0. What minus 1 is 0? 1 minus 1 is 0. And there are the two solutions we were expecting. All right, let's get through problems 11 and 12, and that'll wrap up our video for this lesson. All right, so now looking at problem 11, once again, I see it has a power of 2. It's quadratic, so I'm going to expect two solutions. All right, so now, is it equal to 0? No, it is not. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides to make it equal to 0. Bring everything else down here. There we go. All right, now, what minus 28 is 0? 28 minus 28 is 0. So everything behind my hand has to be 28. All right, so negative 7 times x plus 2 squared is equal to 28. Now we're back to a multiplication problem, right? So negative 7 times what is positive 28? Now it's got to be a negative number, right? A negative times a negative gives me a positive. So negative 7 times negative 4 is equal to 28. So all of this has to be negative 4. Now, once again, we're equal to a negative at this step, right? A square cannot equal to a negative, right? That means we have a no solution problem. All right, moving on to problem 12 here. All right, so once again, all right, I see the x and the exponents. I know it's exponential. I'm expecting one solution. Now, I am verbalizing all of this, and my hope is that you internalize it, right? So that when you start working by yourself, right, you have these kind of list of questions that you ask yourself internalized, right? That way, when you're working on your homework by yourself, when you're working on the exit ticket by yourself, especially when you're doing your assessments by yourself, right? You kind of have this these steps, all right, internalized, and you can go through them all by yourself. All right, so type of function, exponential. How many solutions am I expecting? 1. Okay. Now, is it equal to 0? No, it's not. So let's make it so. So I'm going to subtract 45, right, from each side to make it equal to 0. So 3 times 5 to the x minus 2 minus 75 is equal to 0. Now I use the 0 property. What minus 75 is 0? And that would be 75. All right, so 3 times 5 to the x minus 2 is equal to 75. Now it's a multiplication problem, right? 3 times what is 75? 3 times 25 is 75. So 5 to the x minus 2 is equal to 25. Now, 5 to what power is 25? So go through your powers, right? 5 to the 0 is 1. 5 to the first power is 5. 5 squared is 25. That's what we're looking for, right? So that means x minus 2 has to be 2 in order for us to get 25. So x minus 2 is equal to 2. Now, what minus 2 is 2? And that would be 4, right? So we know the answer has to be 4. If you didn't know it, get it equal to 0, right? Minus 2 minus 2, x minus 4 is equal to 0. What minus 4 is 0? 4 minus 4 is 0, and there's your answer. All right, so hopefully you're seeing that we're really just building, right? We're adding another brick, right, another layer to our wall every day, right? But the concepts, the underlying principles are exactly the same from day to day. We're just adding a little bit more work to it. So once again, if you have any questions, have those ready for class and you probably understand, have those highlighted ready. We'll discuss those when I see you next time. Take care.